Hey everyone, this is Adam Ellenboss from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at the astrology for the week ahead. That is today, Monday, March 3rd through Sunday, March 9th. There are only a few transits this week, although we are on the precipice of major transits all month of March. But I'll be telling you about several of the transits this week and making you aware of some of the other content we're going to be talking about this week, which will include some initial explorations of Neptune into Aries, which is coming at the end of the month. So this week I'll probably fill some of the spaces in between transits, because again, there aren't many, with some Neptune and Aries content, which is great because this is a major outer planetary shift we're going to be experiencing. So I'll spend a little bit more time on that. And then I'm going to be looking today for all of you at, we're going to spend a little bit more time on Mercury entering Aries, which takes place today, leaving Pisces, entering Aries. We'll map out that timeline with Mercury's upcoming retrograde as well. And then we'll look at a few other transits, and I'll make sure I tell you which signs are going to be impacted. Cardinal signs again have a big week, so we'll discuss that toward the end. All right, before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. It really does help our channel to grow when you do that. If you're not subscribed, it's free to do so. You just click the subscribe button on YouTube, and it helps us grow tremendously. I can't overstate that. Transcripts of any of these daily talks can be found on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. When you are over there, I want you to check out what is coming up very shortly. Let me just, where am I? Okay, here, I'm going to share my screen, take you over to Nightlight. You're going to click on events, go to live talks, and you will find that on March 6th, that is this Thursday evening, I'm giving a webinar on the third house. This is going to be a really great talk for those of you who want to understand the third house better. Most of us don't understand how and why it was originally connected to the moon. This house was called the Joy of the Moon and the Temple of the Goddess. So we're going to talk about why and how you can get a little bit more out of an understanding of your third house in your birth chart, how you can work with this house if you have clients. So check that out this Thursday night. It's a webinar link we send you, but if you cannot attend live, we'll send you the recording afterward. I also want to make you aware of the fact that if you go to Speaker Series, there are free Speaker Series events coming up the 15th, 16th, and 23rd of this month. They're all free to attend. You get the replay afterward if you can't attend live, like everything else. Be sure to check out our need-based astrology readings. If you have not checked that out yet, you guys help build that through the Kickstarter. We have our course directors, some tutors, and alumni at different pricing tiers, trying to make sure we give astrologers a chance to develop, while we also give you guys flexible pricing options for an astrology reading. So check those things out on the website. I hope to see you guys at the webinar this Thursday night. Also, actually, I forgot one thing, and I can't forget this. So sorry, one more thing. Go back over to the website. I want you to also look at our upcoming in-person event, which is a little equinox gathering we're having here in Minneapolis on Saturday, March 8th. Just prior to the equinox, we're going to be traveling on the actual date of the equinox. So this is at the Grapevine Collective at the New City Center in Minneapolis. It's free to attend. Just RSVP. Tell us you're coming. We'll bring enough cookies and herbal tea for everybody. And we're going to be doing some movement, some meditation, and some reflecting on the meaning of the equinox. So I hope to see some of you guys there. Apologies, I cannot forget advertising that because it's coming up real quick here. So, all right, let's put our attention now on the real-time clock, and let's talk about the astrology of this week ahead. So we start today, March 3rd, with Mercury entering Aries, coming out of its detriment and fall in Pisces, coming out of a very murky conjunction with Neptune, now into this crystal clear, kind of impulsive, maybe hot-headed fire sign. So I'm going to circle around to talk about that last as our focus for today after I go through everything else in the week. But Mercury entering Aries today, prepping for a retrograde that it will come up onto in the middle of the month. I'll take you through that as well. So that's March 3rd today, Mercury entering Aries. Like I said, we'll get back to that in a minute. March 5th, we take this forward just 2 days. As soon as Mercury enters the sign of Aries, it will make a quick, brief little sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, which gives it a little supercharge, honestly. It has a little transformative oomph to it that's harmonious. It shouldn't be like a massive Plutonian upheaval kind of event, but more like a little superpower Plutonian energy infusing into Mercury very briefly. And that's the middle of the week on Wednesday, March 5th. When you think about that combination, you really think about the power of the mind to transform or to inject a kind of renewal or regenerative pop into the level of things like thoughts, words, communication, technology, And it may also be about initiating new thoughts and ideas, because Mercury in Aries loves to start things with respect to energies that are mental, intellectual, rational, technological, or even rooted in things like marketplaces and money. So when Mercury hits the little sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, you might go through a period where you have the energy and the power and the motivation to enact new thoughts, ideas, technologies, etc. So it's very brief. You'll feel that maybe Tuesday through Thursday, with Wednesday being the peak. And then finally, at the very end of the week, there's only 3 transits this week that are of worth talking about here from where I sit. And the third one is going to be on the day where the moon is conjoining Mars in Cancer. We are also going to get a nice fluid trine from the sun to Mars. This is important because that trine that is taking place very recently indicated the change of direction for Mars. So Mars stationing and turning direct always coincides with the trine, or retrograde for that matter, also with a trine to the sun. When the sun actually hits the trine to Mars, you will often notice that it is around that time. If the turn direct has happened just prior to that time, then at about that time, you really feel like the new direction that Mars represents is starting to pick up speed and clarity and momentum. So for a lot of people, that means that the actual feeling of Mars turning direct may really start to be noticed. You may have noticed Mars turning direct, around the end of February, the 23rd, 24th of February, right around that time. But you may really feel like you're in new territory energetically and with respect to the topics of the house that Mars is in your chart when this trine occurs, because this trine is really sort of re-infusing Mars with the images and ideals of its new path. The sun is like an emblem for all that is ideal in some sense, living in the archetypal realm. That was what the sun represented for ancient astrologers. So the synodic cycles become really important for understanding deep resets and redirections within the cycles of all the planets. When the station direct happens just before a trine and then the trine occurs, you often get to feel like now the new direction is clear. The inspiration, the momentum, the energy, the life force, the renewal, the vitality, it all starts coming forth stronger. And from this moment, of course, Mars is going to continue to pick up speed. And we have about another month where Mars will be in Cancer, and then it clears Cancer and immediately engages with an opposition to Pluto, which means that we're on a path of reinvigorating ourselves toward a very potent change that has been behind, or the work of the entire retrograde process, dating back to Mars in the shadow period of Cancer, which was all the way in, say, September, October-ish of 2024. So it's something we're going to spend more time with at the end of this week for sure, because that, for many of us, again, will really signal the beginning of the end of the retrograde. Even if for some people you may have felt that when Mars turned direct, but again, for a lot of folks, you'll really notice it with this trine. So those are the major transits for the week. Let's circle back around to Mercury entering Aries today at the start of the week. One of the most important things that this signifies here on Monday, March 3rd, is that Mercury is out of a place that is debilitated. That doesn't mean Mercury is worthless in Pisces, or there's nothing good to say about it, or come check out my talk on the dignities to learn more about them. But what it does mean is that Mercury is in a place that is not somehow fundamentally opposite to its own nature. Aries is a more neutral place for Mercury. Mercury has some dignity and it's bound in the middle of the sign, but it's in now the domicile of Mars and of the sun, and Mercury does just fine with those planets. There's a sympathy between those planets that's more neutral or even positive compared to the challenges that Mercury can face when expressing itself in the home of Venus and Jupiter. Jupiter a natural opposite, Venus a natural opposite to Mercury. So the compromises and tensions that Mercury holds while in the sign of Pisces are somewhat more challenging to hold, although can be very creatively fruitful, but they're somewhat more challenging to hold, and it's not as natural for Mercury to hold those tensions as it is for Mercury to work in a sign, a fire sign of Mars and an exaltation of the sun. So when in this sign, for example, you may find that some of the qualities that are appearing right now might be mental clarity, determination, a connection between the executive willpower functions and the mental rational functions. I can think clearly. I can act clearly in a seamless connection or communication with my thoughts and ideas. I can speak directly. I can speak courageously. I can speak out. I can speak up. I can speak a little bit louder. I'm not as confused. I have less of a hard time making decisions. My mind isn't as clouded by my desires or by romantic longings or fantasies. Those are some of the benefits that may occur for some people as soon as Mercury leaves Pisces and enters Aries. When Mercury is in Aries, Pisces, it's not that any of those qualities are necessarily bad either, right? Mercury and Neptune can be absolutely otherworldly, mystical, romantic, imaginative, artistic. There can be so many wonderful things in that sign as well. But for those people who have felt emotionally overwhelmed, unclear, foggy, ungrounded, this shift of dignity will likely feel better, right? So everyone's different. Mercury, initially in the sign, is now sharing a form of mutual reception with Jupiter. It is in the bound of Jupiter while Jupiter is in the domicile of Mercury. So these first couple of days, there's also this really nice communication taking place between Mercury and Jupiter. That means that they can build coherence and understanding with putting together all different kinds of parts and information and data, and they can build something or create a kind of coherence together that's powerful. Whether this just conveys in terms of things that are useful or advantageous, or communication is easy, or plans or organization is somehow easier to find or access, or there's just more of a playful, fun way of thinking, or even just inspiration mentally and or, like in terms of communication, business, and relationships with other people. You might find that inspiration and ideas are just freely and easily being exchanged or shared. So there's a lot of reasons to like that, especially since at the very end of the sign of Pisces, we had Mercury in a conjunction with Neptune and in the bound of Saturn for a minute there too, which, is a little bit more like, it's, it's a little bit more like, being high and maybe feeling stuck at the same time. I'm just playing. But it's like that was a challenging position somewhat for Mercury here at the end of Pisces. So again, you might be experiencing a weight lifting. And also, if there's been some uncertainty, you may find that decisiveness is back. Okay, so just a few thoughts there. Now, as promised, let's talk about where the signs are seeing this dignity change, which is definitely one of the stories of the week, along with the trine that is hitting Mars and reactivating it. So for Aries, you have that Mercury entering. This is all for cardinal signs this week. You got a big week with the cardinal signs and cardinal houses being activated in your chart. So this is for rising signs, of course. You can listen to this for your sun sign as well, but the rising sign will correspond with the actual transits to your birth chart. The Mercury position in the first house emphasizes the same process that Venus retrograde is emphasizing in your first house, which has to do with identity, body, health, psychological changes or focus on character, and even things like behavior or what makes you authentically you, and how do you convey that or communicate that clearly or more effectively? Are you experiencing a change of values and identity, etc.? Now, Mars picking up the trine in the fourth house means momentum is gathering around the topics of home and family, roots, living environment at the same time this week. All right, so for Cancers, we see the Mercury entering your 10th house, where actions might be clarified with respect to what connects you to the public sphere of activity. So the public sphere is anything that connects you, not in the private sphere, but the public sphere. It's that simple. In this house, you may see some of that executive clarity and direction and purpose and decision-making and all of that coming through in relation to career, vocation. There's also some remaking of things relative to career or how you show up in the world or your visibility. So Mercury, along with Venus in this house, emphasizing a change with respect to that social or professional sphere of life. Now, the Mars turning direct and picking up some momentum now through the trine this week in your first house should mean that you're starting to feel better, or maybe overcoming some lethargy or heaviness or weightiness around things like health or energy. It could also mean that just developments around personality, character, and maybe connections to the things like home, family, your sense of purpose and who you are also starting to clarify themselves and move probably in a less difficult way than they have been. All right, let's go forward to Libra. With Libra, we see the Mercury entering your 7th house of partnerships, relationships, interpersonal connections, maybe even business partnerships, maybe even the clients you work with. And there's some changes happening in relationships for Libras that are pretty important, but now you also have the power to speak, talk, act, think much more deliberately, and maybe working your way out of a realm of confusion to greater clarity in relationships. So I like that right now for you Libras, with Mars also picking up momentum in the career house or whatever ties you to the public or social dimension of life. That's, again, not the private sphere, but a more public, social, civic sphere of life. Or for most people who are working, it will be something to do with your career. And you may find that if there's been difficulties or setbacks or changes and revisions, that you're seeing things pick up positive momentum again. All right, let's go forward, last but not least, to Capricorn. And with Capricorns, we see the Mercury entering your 4th house this week, home and family, roots. There's a process of transformation happening with Venus retrograde there. Mercury's going to mirror it. The solar eclipse will mirror it. Neptune entering the 4th house will mirror it. So a lot of emphasis on home, family, roots, parental or family karma, and the realm of relationships and family as well, with Mars having been retrograding Cancer, sign of home and family, in the 7th house of marriage. So it's really home, family, and marriage as the core topics, or living environment, private sphere of life, and interpersonal dynamics or relationships of any kind. You're seeing some positive momentum developing in that marriage and relationship house, with maybe some elements of family involvement there as well. While you're also seeing ongoing emphasis on the 4th house of home, family, and that private sphere of life, with all of the transits in Aries coming through, and Mercury adds to that by entering Aries recently. So that is the signs, that are really getting it this week, are the cardinal signs. And that's going to be pretty consistent across the month with all this stuff happening in Aries. Of course, if you want to hear your horoscope for any of these topics, go back to our horoscopes for the month of March. You will find coverage of all of the Aries transits for all 12 signs in depth. And we will be doing more of that as the weeks and months go on, always. So hope that this was useful for you today. Remember, we're going to be checking out Neptune's entrance into Aries a little bit later in the week. Start to meditate on that and get some feel for that outer planetary shift. These will really be my first major talks on Neptune and Aries that I've done since the webinar I did on Neptune and Aries last year, which was way out in advance of this transit. But I'll draw on some small elements from that talk as well. And I'll also tell you how you could pick up that webinar if you wanted a whole 2 hours on the topic at another point in time. So anyway, that's it for today, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye, everyone.